Jeff Steyer is on the line with us, Senior Fellow with the National Center for Public Policy Research. nationalcenter.org is the website. You can tweet him at Jeff A. Steyer, S-T-I-E-R. Do I have that right, Jeff?
You do, Tom.
Okay, cool. Welcome back, Jeff.
I'm always bracing myself when I come back on.
Uh-oh. Okay. So you've got this article out, and in fact, where did the front page go? I don't have the front page. Oh, how the no, that's...
This was the National Review article, which I think is one of your favorite magazines.
Yes, of course. Hang on just a second. Oh, here it is right here. Your burger is killing the planet, say the Climatarians. Move over vegetarian. The Climatarian is now taking the smug seat at the dinner table. What?
Well, there are people who think, and maybe you're one of them, that we should eat differently in order to change the planet, but which I think may even be a reasonable idea. But they've got this axe to grind with meat, that they're going after meat so much that at the Paris Conference of the Parties Climate Change Agreement back a couple months ago, there were those who were trying to get a tax placed on meat, a sin tax. They believe it's a sin to eat meat, just like we have soda taxes and cigarette taxes and you name it. Meat is now the new coal. Meat is bad, and if you eat it, you have to pay a tax on it to kind of counteract the harm you're doing to the environment. Yet, when my co-author Julie Kelly and I did a review of some of the science that was written about this issue, we found, and this is not according to a right-wing think tank, but we found that Carnegie Mellon University scientists did a study, and they found that if we switched over, and instead of eating the diet that most Americans eat today, we switched over to the dietary guidelines recommended diet, we actually would have more impact on the environment because, we'd be eating more fruits and vegetables and they're very water intensive. So we'd be using up lots and lots of water. And if you know, water is really a problem. So,
well, it depends on the fruits and vegetables. I mean, there are a lot of fruits and vegetables that are drought resistant and don't use enormous amounts. I mean, avocados take a lot of water. Right, walnuts take a lot of water. It's one of the reasons why they're having real problems in the Central Valley of California, where they grow those things.
Almonds as well. But we haven't seen a recommendation for an almond tax.
But beef there's a huge debate in California about that. I don't know if it's about a tax, but about shutting down those almond groves. But the simple reality, Jeff, is that. It takes dozens, if not hundreds, of pounds of plant matter to make a pound of beef or pork or chicken. And it takes dozens to hundreds of gallons of water to make a pound of beef or chicken or whatever. And so outside of eating game, and I've been a vegetarian since '67, but I have never criticized somebody who actually hunts for their food. I grew up in Michigan. My friends used to go hunting every fall. We lived in Vermont. We had a couple hundred acres there. We had hunters going through our property. I don't criticize people who hunt to eat. And in Vermont and in Michigan, there's a lot of people who are living on the edge of poverty, and that getting a deer is literally 4 months worth of food for them, or at least of meat. But on the other hand, meat does use, you're saying, okay, vegetables use water and all this kind of stuff. Well, meat, cows don't just magically grow. They eat vegetables.
You're absolutely right, Tom, we agree. But what I'm suggesting is that there is this ideological opposition to people eating meat, yet we don't see any of that criticism about the carbon footprint of vegetables or the water footprint of vegetables.
Well, that's because we have to eat something, Jeff. I think that's like rational thinking, not... you're creating either a straw man or a false choice here. Are you suggesting that we should all become breatharians and just live on breath?
Tom, that's absurd. What I'm suggesting is that people eat the food that they believe is healthy for them, that tastes good, that is priced right. But, I thought you might be more sympathetic to my argument here that we shouldn't have this meat tax, because for most people in the U.S., it wouldn't be a terrible burden. We pay a little more for our meat, but maybe we feel better about it. But as poor people around the world...
How does reducing your risk of cancer and heart disease constitute a terrible burden.
I'm glad you want to bring that up, but let's see if we can stay on one topic at a time, and I'll get to the cancer argument in a second, because that's an easy one for me. But with regard to poor people, many people in developing countries actually want to eat meat. They think it's more enjoyable, and it's something they aspire to.
Well, it's considered a status symbol. You can afford it because it's expensive, because it takes so much vegetables to make that meat.
So here's the thing. I thought you would be sympathetic to this argument, because people in developing countries, I think, ought to be able to live at higher standards.
Well, they might want to live in palaces too, or have giant green grasses, lawns like we do here in the United States, emulating the British aristocracy of the 15th century. I think that's crazy too.
But that's not actually what I said. So you're the one, I think, setting up a straw man false argument here. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Well, here's the net, Jeff. What's wrong with eating less meat?
Nothing.
Okay. Then
but I don't think government should be, and this is what's happening, governments are being pushed to use taxpayer dollars to distort both the health and environmental impact of eating meat.
Well, hang on just a second. We use taxes for three different things. We use taxes to change behavior. We use taxes to fund the government, and we use taxes to accomplish very specific policy goals. Now, if the policy goal is to reduce the amount of methane in the atmosphere, cow farts are way up there. If the policy goal is to reduce the hundreds of millions of tons of untreated waste that gets dumped into our rivers and waters, that's creating giant dead zones, like in the Gulf of Mexico, rather, from these giant hog operations and chicken operations, that seems like a good policy thing. If we're trying to reduce the amount of meat that people eat that's making them sick, and increase the amount of fruits and vegetables, it seems to me like a meat tax is actually a very good idea. And the other reason we have taxes is to capture externalities. Well, I guess that's the waste that I was talking about. That typically they don't pay for these externalities; they just dump their sewage in the river.
You see, I hate to rain on your parade, but you pointed out, for instance, that meat causes cancer. I think you would argue.
No, processed meat, according to the National Institutes of Health.
According to the World Health Organization.
World Health Organization, thank you, WHO.
Last year, the World Health Organization said that actually eating any meat increases cancer risk, but especially processed meat.
Right.
And in fact, the World Health Organization had to backtrack on that claim because the science didn't support any real-world impact. And we've seen it over and over again. This is part of that ideology that I was referring to that demonizes meat. Could you imagine if there were a study that said, I don't know, soy caused breast cancer? You wouldn't hear much about it, but it's true. But we don't have.
Well, there's been a fair amount of. For years, there's been an enormous amount of publicity about the estrogen mimicker properties of soy. Yep. I mean, but that doesn't mean that it causes breast cancer. It just means that when women are diagnosed with breast cancer, they're generally advised to stay away from soy products and anything. And there's about a dozen other foods that also mimic estrogen, by the way, or increase estrogen production.
I'm glad you're able to look at it. Study critically, but it's interesting that people who don't want us eating meat have the ability to dissect studies like the estrogen studies, which actually...
I don't get why you care about this. Has the National Center gotten a big grant from the National Cattlemen's Association?
Oh, come on. You see, that's what you have to fall back on, and the answer is no. But why I care about this is because I don't want to see governments, especially using taxpayer dollars, to mislead the public about things like processed meat causing cancer when we know the evidence is quite clear that it doesn't. But what happens is you guys get a free ride every time you have something that you don't like meat.
Yeah.
You'll start putting out junk science studies, usually government funded, so they must be credible, right?
Okay. Jeff, we're out of time, but you got the last word. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.